And I'll be the first to say that I've grown since then, and I've moved on from former views.
Yeah, you've moved on from the Xbox console warrior grift to the 100%. Anti-LGBTQ grift.
Sure, if that's what you want to call it.
Bread tuber. The word has basically become a slur for me at this point, due to how people like Nick is not green, Ethan is online, Xander Hall in Praise of Shadows, and a lot of others from this genre of leftist creators act, you know, from being generally annoying to pushing false allegations to being just generally detestable people who are completely victim to like internet brain rot. I hate these people. But I've noticed a trend recently where people from the other side of the aisle are behaving a lot like these dudes. And I feel like they're kind of, I don't know, they're kind of getting away with it. Take Synthetic Man, for example. Synthetic Man is a game review YouTuber who would probably call himself alt-right or far-right. He's one of these dudes who talks about wokeness in video games a lot, and there definitely does seem to be some kind of push from some companies to shove as many gay and trans characters in games and media as possible because they think it will make them money. Now, as of late, it doesn't seem to be working out. The abundance of gay minorities in any property is not enough to save it from its terrible quality. But Synthetic Man has kind of a different perspective. You see, even for media that is widely revered and respected and loved by critics and, you know, the audiences alike, he tends to have a big problem with it if there's a black person that exists. Because to him, if a black person exists in media, that is propaganda.
Even more funny, because if you know anything about marriage statistics, you would know that white male, black female actually has the lowest divorce rates. So in a way, you could almost say this is anti-propaganda, but I still think it's promoting race mixing. The TV and movies blow the gaming industry out of the water. Basically, every streaming show I've tried to watch with my mother has had some form of propaganda in it.
The dude just sees like a black guy in a TV show and his blood fucking boils. I don't really know what's going on with him. There seems to be some deep sense of insecurity within him because he has a big problem with any interracial couple whatsoever in any piece of media. Like, it just makes him fucking rage. Maybe it's some kind of like porn brain thing. He's endured too much BBC therapy. I don't really know, but it really pisses him off to no end.
And we find out her soon-to-be husband is actually a white guy and not ugly. Shocking. But don't worry, they ruined that pretty shortly. It's not like in the original Fallout games, all the characters were white, but there's something uncanny about this whole thing. We'll put it at that. I'm not going to make a huge deal over it. Now we get to meet our final main character, Maximus. And it's another pussy-ass black guy.
I mean, this is basically what the guy does for a living. He sees a mixed-race couple and he goes, what the heck? A black guy and a white woman? That's fucking disgusting. And don't even get me started. Don't even get me started on the white guy and black woman. I mean, what's going on there? Seriously, hey, you are not allowed to get any black pussy whatsoever.
Mixed-race couple? Cringe.
Well, obviously, as a YouTuber with over 100,000 subscribers, a lot of people became aware of Synthetic Man and who he was, and his notoriety made its way all the way to the top of YouTube when Critical decided to talk about him on his podcast in a less than favorable light.
There's only one guy that's sticking to his guns about the show is just woke propaganda, it's garbage, and it's the classic Synthetic Man. I don't know if you've seen his like Tears of the Kingdom review.
Oh yeah.
He's like the last holdout, and I decided to watch what he said about Fallout because I was curious, and one of the first things he mentions is propaganda about race mixing, and it was I was fucking stunned. What? It was crazy. Yeah, one of his first complaints is that it's propaganda about race mixing in the beginning.
It was a pretty short segment on the podcast. They talked about him for all of 2 minutes in a very passive way. It wasn't that mean or aggressive. It was just like, look at this ridiculous guy. He's a silly dude. And you would think, given the relatively fringe political space that Synthetic Man occupies, he would be realistic about the fact that people are going to take note of his channel and talk about it and mock him a little bit. So when he was streaming one day, someone in his chat alerted him to the fact that Charlie had talked about him, and he proceeded to basically have a complete meltdown over it.
Critical called me out.
Have taught me that it's...
Are you fucking kidding me? Critical called me out? Oh my god. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Are you serious? Oh my god. This is the biggest fucking shill campaign ever of all time. Like, Amazon's gotta be paying these fucks.
You serious?
One common thing for people like this is the conspiracy angle. You see, anytime someone disagrees with them or just calls them retarded, the instant response, instead of engaging with the content or engaging with their talking points, is to accuse the opposition of being paid off. Critical couldn't possibly have just seen his video and thought it was dumb and just criticized what he had to say. He couldn't have possibly wanted to make fun of him of his own volition. No. There has to be some greater conspiracy where he's being paid off. You know that relatively normal milquetoast YouTube guy who's notorious for having like the most milquetoast takes of all time because he's so fucking normal and inoffensive as a person? That guy could not have possibly seen the video and thought, hey, this is kind of silly. No, he has to be personally paid off by Amazon to talk about him for 2 minutes on a podcast that got no more than 120,000 views. Now, you would think that at some point for someone like Synthetic Man, the approach would turn from personal insults to talking about the arguments at hand. I mean, shitting on people is funny, making fun of them is funny, but there's got to be something there, right? But no, instead, he just pivots from this being about Charlie being an Amazon shill to how he's a sellout in general, and then he decides to pull some personal insults out of his ass.
Yeah, this is a 26-minute clip of him rambling about fucking movie reviews, and he says, I'm ashamed of my past self. This is the shit. This is the guy shitting on me. You gotta be fucking kidding. Critical is the biggest sellout on this fucking platform. His word is worth nothing. Literally the most like normie, zoomer appealing, milquetoast, like sucking off every fucking normie ass opinion. Like fucking just, it's disgusting to me that I used to watch his channel because he used to be kind of funny. Now, we have rewatched some of his old videos and they haven't aged perfectly. But greed ruined these YouTubers one day ago. Coming from him, you fucking scum. I'm glad this manlet got cheated on. His girlfriend got tired of his tiny penis and left him. I mean, I gotta keep it in.
I don't even know where this came from. I don't think there's any proof or narrative anywhere that Charlie got cheated on, so I'm not really sure why he's saying this, but even if he did get cheated on, I fail to see how that, like, invalidates his arguments. If anything, that just kind of makes me feel bad for him. I would be fine with him saying this if the energy from Critical was extremely aggressive, if he was, like, insulting his appearance or, like, shitting all over him repeatedly, just, like, calling him out ad nauseum, being like, this guy's such a piece of shit, such a terrible person, he's a racist, he's ugly, he's gross, he's dumb, he's low IQ. Like, then the energy would kind of make sense there, right? But realistically, that's not what happened. So to me, what this shows is a large level of insecurity from Synthetic Man. And of course, the irony of a guy who looks like this, going after someone for their relationship and talking about how small his dick is I'm sure not lost on anyone.
But he gets what he fucking deserves, that's all I'm saying. I have no sympathy for the manlets.
But of course, people like Synthetic Man are not interested in arguments or conversation. They're interested in making one kind of content that caters to one kind of person, and that's really it. Much like Nick is Not Green, or Ethan is Online, or In Praise of Shadows. Everything is political to these people. Everything is some kind of conspiracy. For leftists, it's capitalism, it's Trump, it's fascism somehow, everything is fascist. Meanwhile, for Synthetic Man, it's the woke people or the Jews or whatever.
Let's say, hypothetically, you were trying to create a race of mongrel slave people with double-digit IQs.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
While you believe you're the best ever, you're God's chosen people, right?
And this brings us to Andy Pants Gaming. Now, Andy is a guy with 160,000 subscribers on YouTube. You can see his banner there is the Giga Chad picture. It's a real classic, okay? He's strong and shit, okay? He's based, he's red-pilled. A lot of his videos are about anti-woke stuff being put in video games. He's got titles like Who Killed Masculinity in Games and Why Are Video Games So Gay Now? And at one point, he decided to create a video about the Act Man, who is another game reviewer who I'm sure a lot of you know.
So with every new video I make now, I'm like, probably gonna get canceled after this one. Oh well, here we go.
Now you can see at this point, he's already kind of planted the seed in people's minds right from the jump that he's based, and what he's about to say is what everyone's thinking, but no one else will say it. No one else is willing to say the truth about the Act Man and the woke agenda conspiracy behind it that's going on.
Have you noticed these three creators never call anything woke? And if they do, they're making fun of you for using the term? Have you noticed they never talk about the obvious uglification of women in games the past few years? Have you noticed they never talk about the LGBTQI_7 community and how they basically run video games right now? Have you noticed they never point out obvious racism against white people? In fact, they'll often say lies like racism against white people isn't possible. Have you noticed none of them ever talk about the trillions of dollars companies make by bumping up their DEI and ESG initiatives and by putting evil woke nonsense in their games? Have you noticed they never talk about the complete removal of masculinity from video games? So why? Why are these three dudes intentionally avoiding calling out wokeness in games?
And here, when I watch this video, I feel like I'm seeing a perfect mirror of the leftist YouTubers I was talking about not that long ago. Those dudes would always complain about how the real problem is capitalism, and by not talking about it, people are trying to pander and hide to avoid the real issues, when really most people who make like commentary or review videos on YouTube just want to talk about the content at hand. They don't want to talk about politics endlessly. I mean, this harkens back to me to how Ethan is online said that Critical doesn't understand modern art before saying that this one fan is amazing because the creator of it was gay and his like friend got HIV.
I'm gonna end this video by telling you about one of my favorite art pieces. It's just a fan, an electric box fan. But the description reads, soon after the death of his lover, Steven Arabino from AIDS, Los Angeles conceptual artist Boscovich discovered that Arabino's family had completely cleared out his apartment. An entire person, existence, and relationship had been erased.
You can never just call something shit. There has to be a deeper analysis. You have to read into it to see the agenda that Ethan personally wants you to push. And because the Act Man doesn't talk about wokeness in games, he is necessarily a part of the gay woke agenda. He is cowering to it. He doesn't want to piss off the communists in his audience. He says that the Act Man doesn't talk about anti-white racism as if he is obligated to talk about that in any context. He even straight up says that the Act Man thinks that you can't be racist to white people, which is something I've never heard him say, and I have no idea where this is coming from. When I watch the Act Man, I'm going to it because I want to see his videos about the quality of games. If you watch his stuff, he's typically not talking about the political messaging of these games. Sometimes he will discuss the political conversation around a game and kind of push back against it, but he's rarely talking about like some game and being like, whoa, why are there so many black people here? That's generally not a thing he does, and I don't think he has to. He's discussed the politicization of games from people like Anita Sarkeesian, the conversation around Hogwarts Legacy, which undoubtedly the negative impression around Hogwarts Legacy was from leftist retards who don't care about the quality of the game and just care about the fact that J.K. Rowling is transphobic or whatever. But Andy Pants over here is acting like the Act Man has an obligation to discuss what he personally wants him to talk about, which is wokeness. And Andy then switches to the classic tactic of using personal insults in lieu of any real arguments.
To put it simply, it's because these dudes are cucks. They're pussies. All three of these guys are definitely voting for Kamala Harris in November. I heard Endymion call him Ackmam one time, and the label definitely fits.
I've never heard Actman endorse Kamala Harris. Did you just fall out of a coconut tree?
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
But let's say he did want to vote for her, okay? Let's say hypothetically he did. Would that mean that everything he says is dumb? I don't really think so. In the same way that just because someone votes for Trump, it doesn't mean they're like a racist or a fascist or whatever label you want to put on all Trump voters. Like, there are millions and millions of people out there who are voting for both of these candidates. Just because they're voting for a political person does not mean that they are as politically brain-rotted as you. And it doesn't invalidate their opinions on other things.
And then when he gets to the part where you're supposed to talk about why the game failed, he just says, bad gameplay, bad character design. Why do you suppose Ackmam doesn't talk about the fact that Concord has 3 black females in it and not a single white man? Why do you suppose he doesn't talk about all the LGBTQ plus activists on Twitter who worked on the game? Interesting. He even at one point in the video makes fun of the idea that bigger breasts would save this game. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, dude. Is that idea so ridiculous?
And everything that Andy says here is ridiculous. If the Act Man wants to talk about the quality of a video game without delving into the political subtext that you personally are reading into, that's fine. He can literally choose to talk about whatever he wants. It's his YouTube channel. I don't think the quality of his reviews dips significantly because he won't complain about black and gay people being in video games. Frankly, I don't think forced diversity in a game is good. I don't like forced diversity in any media. I would rather it just be good on its own merits. But I also don't think that diversity in any piece of media is going to make it necessarily bad. It's not impossible to make a movie or a game or an album with no white people involved and still make it good.
You'll notice similar things when watching cucks like SkillUp and Bellular analyze Concord. Why do you suppose these guys spend 30 minutes talking about the gameplay and not 1 minute talking about how a huge reason the game failed is because the characters are fat and ugly?
I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm not the biggest gamer in the world these days, but when I was playing games more, never once did it cross my mind how fat or ugly the characters were when relating to the quality of the piece of media. I just didn't care. What I cared about is if the game was good, if it was fun to play. That's literally what matters to most people. If the game is good, they'll play it. If it's not, they won't. And frankly, when I watch Actman videos, I don't watch him to hear him go on and on about how DEI is being shoved into every game. It's boring. boring. There's 100 people who already do that. I would rather hear him critically analyze the media he's talking about to talk about what makes the game good or what makes the game bad. How good or bad the art direction is. How good or bad the gameplay mechanics are. What his replayability is. I don't want to hear a 30-minute rant from Actman talking about how there's too many black or gay people in video games. I don't give a shit, and I don't think the majority of people really care either.
Now, do you think they're going to give a YouTuber like me, who calls them out on a consistent basis, a sneak peek and a tour of the studio? Of course not. They want a shill. They want an empty shill like SkillUp who won't bring up the woke stuff. They want somebody who will be an empty mouthpiece and they can just pour talking points into them while they regurgitate them out.
If this is really the case, you would think Actman would be like taking HRT right now and talking about how amazing and beautiful it is that children are transitioning. He'd talk about how Master Chief should be gay.
I'm gay.
Every single video would be pushing this agenda. But he doesn't do that. He just also doesn't talk about DEI because he is under no obligation to discuss what you personally want him to. He can talk about whatever he wants. And frankly, Andy Pants complaining about the fact he doesn't have like early access to these games is ridiculous to me, because if you're running a multi-million-dollar company, why the fuck would you let a guy with 130,000 subscribers who constantly rails about how he's sick of seeing gay people in video games have early access to your game? That's a terrible business decision. Activision is a business. They want to make money. That is their greatest concern. They have shareholders and investors to please. They have an entire board of directors to please. At a company this large, you have a PR department. Imagine the media firestorm that would happen if they did a collaboration with someone like Andy Pants Gaming or The Quartering. It wouldn't go over well for them, and they know that. This is not some insidious agenda. It just comes down to the fact that the general public at large doesn't really care about gay people and thinks they should do whatever they want. Andy Pants evidently doesn't like that whatsoever, and he's entitled to his opinion. I think he should be able to say it as much as he wants, but Activision is under no obligation to give him an opportunity to review their games early if they don't want to, if they think it would cause bad press for them. I mean, imagine if they did do this. I can already see the headlines now. Activision partners with anti-LGBT YouTuber. Under what fucking circumstance would it be advisable for a company that large, that appeals to that many people, that's trying to get that many people to play their games, to do a collaboration with anyone even close to Andy Pants Gaming? This is business, and this is capitalism at its finest. But this is where the broader conspiracy begins to form for Andy. And at this point, these claims could be tantamount to slander.
Actman is indeed good at playing an act. He's good at appearing natural and looking like he's riffing. The reality is he's reading a careful script that has definitely been run by his handlers at Activision and Bungie and other DEI departments. Again, notice these guys never mention BlackRock, ESG, or any of the gay, communist, globalist cancer that these companies push.
In his mind, it is impossible that Actman could just not give a shit. No, instead he must be paid off directly to say what Activision wants him to say, which is nothing. He doesn't even fucking say anything about it. If Actman disagrees with Andy Pants Gaming, or doesn't care about what he cares about, he must be paid off by the corporate hegemony to do so. Andy also cites this article as like proof of this insidious plot, an article that claims to explain why Michael Bell, who's another YouTuber viewer, sold out. We finally have concrete proof of the reason why Michael Bell of Bellular Gaming has refused to discuss the infiltration of DEI propaganda in video games. So I was reading this article for proof of this conspiracy because it sounds really interesting if it's true, and literally all they have is that Holly Longdale, the vice president of Blizzard World of Warcraft, is pro-gay, and Michael has behind-the-scenes access to Blizzard. Therefore, he is for the woke agenda or something. Because Michael doesn't call out DEI, he's a part of the problem. He's personally part of the pro-woke agenda. People seem to have it in their heads that there is some insidious conspiracy where every company wants to push gay shit on them. And that, unfortunately, as convenient and fun as that sounds in your head when you're like living your life like you're in a movie, is just not true. The reason why the Minecraft Twitter account will tweet out trans rights, the reason why Valorant will have a non-binary character in it, is not because of some insidious plot. It is because of pandering and marketing. They believe that if they do that, they will get support from those people and they'll want to play their games more. The reality is that outside of Twitter and a few YouTube channels and a few subreddits and this little community on YouTube, the average person does not give a fuck about DEI. I have a lot of friends in real life who play games, and they have never once mentioned to me anything about how they're sick of like wokeness in gaming. And some of these are relatively conservative people. What they talk about when they play a game or watch a movie is whether or not that piece of media is good or not, based on the merits, based on the quality of the content, not based on the idea that it has too many black people in it. The majority of people simply do not give a shit about this. And most companies just stay out of these issues. They just decide not to say anything about, politics or gay or trans rights because they don't want to have to deal with it. But for some demographic of people, if they hear that a company is anti-LGBT, they may get upset at that, either because they're gay or they have a gay friend or a gay cousin or a gay roommate, and they have sympathy for that person, and that person might get pissed off, so they just want to make that friendship be good and not piss them off, so they're just not going to engage with that kind of thing. If all these companies decided to turn around and take the stance that being trans is bad, obviously, is there a dedicated demographic of people that would enjoy that stuff? Yes, but it would also piss off the other side of the aisle that they've been pandering to for years. I personally don't care if a game or a creator of a game or if a movie or the filmmaker is homophobic or anti-LGBT. I could watch it and still enjoy it. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me. I'll watch anything if it's good. But for marketing and press purposes, there's a reason why these companies behave the way they do. They want to make money. If 80 to 90 to 100% of the United States hated gay people, they would pander to that audience because they are in the business of making money and that's what they want to do. But they're not doing that because the majority of people from this demographic of media enjoyers ultimately have nothing against gay people and don't care about this. But Andy Pants Gaming is an alpha male Chad over here, seems to believe that if you're not calling out the thing that he personally wants you to talk about, then you're bought and paid for. The problem for him isn't even that Actman is pushing this shit on people, it's that he's being silent about it. If you have press access to games, you get to play them early and review them early on your channel, you should be personally willing to give up that business benefit because you need to talk about or something, which is so stupid and counterintuitive to anybody who's trying to run a business. The reality is that people like Actman just don't care about DEI. They don't give a shit. They want to talk about video games from the perspective of game design, not politics, and that's a totally fine position to have.
But part of his ability to get that info is to continue to be a corporate shill for Activision and parrot the talking points they want. He's a good little sheep and never asks about DEI or ESG. This is why even if they wanted to, Actman, Bellular, and SkillUp can't talk about the woke agenda. These low-T beta males have been bought and sold by Activision, by Sony, by Microsoft, by Bungie.
And once again, with the conspiracy angle aside, the idea that Andy Pants Gaming, someone who looks like a real-life soy jack, thinks he has any right to call the Actman a low-T beta male is completely ridiculous. But this is really all he has. Actman doesn't talk about the issue that I personally want him to, therefore he is personally bought and paid for, and he actually cares way more than he's willing to admit. But you know what, at the very least, I can respect Andy Pants for being willing to have a conversation about this issue rather than run from it. He was willing to have a debate with the Actman that he invited him to. The running would come later, but we'll get to that later. Andy opens by being very, very confident when the Actman is working out some technical difficulties that he's trying to run from him.
Waiting on you, Actman. Guys, is he gonna pussy out? Is he gonna puss out because leftists are pussies?
Well, Actman would in fact join the call, which is when the real debate happens. And the majority of it was Andy accusing Actman of being paid off with no real substance or anything to talk about.
I do wonder if it's secondhand.
You're a smart guy. You're not retarded. Let's not insult both of our intelligences here, okay? If you genuinely think I'm being paid by Activision, you have never watched a single Call of Duty video I've made.
You're still talking about the game, though. So I'm trying to piece a lot of these things together, like why.
And you're doing a really bad job of it.
Why
by the
you
way.
don't talk about woke stuff? Why you there's certain rakes that you avoid stepping on, and I wonder if it's to be more palatable to your corporate handlers. Okay, all right. I knew you were going to deny that, so it's fine.
What?
He does this a few times throughout the conversation, and despite being a devout Christian, he funnily enough is unable to recite the 9th commandment.
I'm a big fan of the 9th commandment. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
What is that? Coveting?
No. It's funny. My other buddy said it. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. I'm a big fan of that one.
Oh, okay. Did I lie somewhere?
You've done a lot of lying, buddy.
Now, for a little bit of important lore, Andy used to have another channel where he talked about Xbox content. He was an Xbox fanboy. He's called Actman a grifter many times for not talking about the whole woke agenda because he personally doesn't want to. And he then has to admit in this same debate that he would just not talk about the woke stuff on his old channel because it didn't personally benefit him because the audience didn't want to hear it at the time.
Even in my old Xbox videos, I talked about woke stuff. I talked about woke stuff on my old Xbox channel. It's just that happened to be an audience that didn't want to hear me talk about the woke stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm going to follow the algorithm and make content that my audience wants here.
He has been calling other people grifters for not talking about this shit. He accuses them of being paid off while having no proof for it, and then he openly admits that he only started talking about these issues when it was doing well in the algorithm and people wanted to hear it. That's like the definition of a grifter. Meanwhile, instead of providing any evidence that Actman is a grifter, he just parrots shit he heard in comment sections and says, people are saying I miss the old Actman, as if YouTube comments are always the pinnacle of intelligence and reason.
Can you admit that you've moved on from making based videos to making play both sides puss videos? Dude, seriously.
He accuses him of grifting because 10 years ago, he made a video about feminists raging about video games, but he didn't do that like yesterday. As if he's changed and will never criticize any content that feminists and gay people have created. But as the Actman brings up, he made a video about the Hogwarts Legacy controversy a year ago, and he talked about how ridiculous it was that people were saying this game should go down in flames because of J.K. Rowling.
You don't know anything about my channel, bro.
People are like, what happened to that Actman? That's honestly what people are saying now. What happened to that Actman? Because he went away. He disappeared.
No, he didn't. I made the Hogwarts Legacy video last year. What are you talking about?
Questionable.
What questionable? What do you mean? That video's still on my channel. You can check it out right now. I'm telling
you what the audience is saying about you. They're saying that you fell off.
Yeah.
And this only makes Andy look like that much more of a grifter again, because he's just pandering to what the comment section says. If he was truly resolute in his beliefs and principled, which, regardless of whatever he thinks, I could definitely respect, he's just like, people in the comments are saying this. Who gives a fuck, you pussy? But this is not even the pinnacle of how disingenuous things get here. During the debate, randomly, like out of nowhere, he brings up how one random dude, keep in mind this is not someone that Actman knows, not someone he's friends with, not a moderator on his Discord server, not someone who has financial ties to him. He brings up how one random dude in his Discord server called someone a monkey.
Funny that you bring this up because somebody on your server actually called a black person a monkey. It's funny that you bring up
racism. Way.
No.
One person in my fucking Discord server said something racist once? Oh my God. Oh my God. He's so based. Dude, are you for real, bro? Are you for real? Don't come at me with this fucking weak shit.
No. And look, I will be the first person to say that there's stuff on my Discord that happens that I don't know about. My only point in saying this is that there's nobody more racist than leftists like you.
Keep in mind, Actman never called Andy racist or sexist or homophobic. He didn't bring up anything from his Discord server, despite how desperate Andy was to be called a homophobe.
Go ahead, dude. Do you want to call me homophobic now or later?
I don't care about that shit, bro. I care about you being a fake. And that when the people find out who you really are, the leopards will eat your face.
All right. Well, just know whenever you want to be like, oh, you're homophobic, I've got a response ready for you. So whenever you want to do that. So here's my next question.
You think so little of me.
During the whole conversation, Actman didn't resort to cheap pot shots. He tried to actually discuss what Andy believes. Andy, meanwhile, unironically did the same thing that someone on the far left would do. He pointed out one random person in Actman's Discord server and tried to use that to say that Actman's audience is racist. He also calls him a leftist about 14 times.
Yeah, Actman just denies all this stuff because he wants to hang out with leftists. And I'm sure you have a lot of leftist friends in the industry and all these homos, and you go to pride parades. And like, I get it, dude. No, seriously.
Bro, that I'm putting all on you. And you're a leftist. And you're like, are you retarded, Andy? You're not retarded. There's no way you can make this possible connection through any logical means and actually believe it.
Dude, your friends that go to the pride parade are going to hate that you said retard right now. They're gonna hate
I don't give a shit.
How fitting, because you don't want to piss off the leftists because that would interfere with your bag. I get it.
That is the dumbest fucking thing I've heard.
To my knowledge, Actman is not a leftist, so I don't know why he even said that. I honestly think it's just another excuse for Andy to walk away from the arguments at hand. Throughout the entire conversation, Andy refuses to talk about anything that actually matters, because if he did, his arguments would crumble. Instead, he has to resort to saying the same retarded 5 lines he said in his video. Because his beliefs don't actually have any backing, there's no factual basis to it, it's just a feeling he has. And when all you have are feelings and emotions, generally in a conversation with anyone with more than 2 brain cells, your arguments are going to fall apart. Despite the clear animosity during this conversation from Andy, at the end of the conversation, he seemed satisfied with how it went. He was like, you know what? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for letting me roast you. And dude,
man, you did a really bad job of it. I'm gonna be straight up. And dude,
props to you for coming on. And it takes some balls to come on here and let me like interview you and roast you, and respect, dude. I really appreciate it.
Next time, come up with better roasts, and don't just copy comments or copy insults from your comment section. I think deep down you're actually a smart guy.
Okay.
And you're capable of. There's a lot to roast me on. I mean,
yeah.
You know.
All right. I'll work on that. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after the debate came out and people were roasting him, he tried to intimidate the Act Man into not posting or talking about the debate or making a video about him. Hey dude, just wanted to tell you, I have no intent to make another video about you specifically. If you do end up making a video about me on your channel, what I would do in response is to do a well-researched video that brings up the many controversies you've been caught in the past. Quantum TV, heel versus babyface, posting DMs, Asman, all of it. So look dude, honestly just ready for a ceasefire. I went into our little debate without fully doing my research. I had some fun, learned some stuff, ready to move on. But if you make a video directed at me, I will make one back. And it has a lot of ammunition, just letting you know. The guy who is such a badass, who calls other people beta males, who is arguing with facts and logic, according to him, is trying to force someone else to back down from a stupid internet drama by threatening him. I'm gonna expose you. I mean, what is wrong with this guy? He may actually have like a serious screw loose. I can't think of anything more pussy than trying to intimidate someone out of making a video on you. Other than maybe copyright claiming re-uploads of that same debate because you're too much of a pussy to handle people talking about you. Which is exactly what Andy did. He filed a copyright claim on Actman's re-upload of this conversation. People called him out on Twitter for this and he said, "You're gonna be fine, Alex. Actman didn't just clip the interview, he reposted the entire thing. That's a clear YouTube violation. Cope though." First of all, this is just as much Actman's content as it is Andy's, considering they were both in the debate. I think some people are going to be like, oh, maybe he doesn't understand the copyright system. Andy just didn't know. That's so stupid. This guy's a professional YouTuber. There's no excuse to not understand the YouTube copyright system when you do this for a living. But striking a simple re-upload of a debate, I mean, why would he do that? He's the base Giga Chad alpha male. Well, the reason he did that is because this dude is insecure. He knows he looked dumb and he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle people making fun of him. The same guy who is calling other people soy boys is striking down re-uploads of a debate where he looked bad. Thankfully, the community note kind of corrected him a little bit with some useful information about copyright stuff, so hopefully you understand now, Andy. Between trying to intimidate the Actman out of making a video on him by threatening him with, "I'll make an exposed video about you back," and striking down the actual debate and hiding comments on his own version of the debate, frankly, I can't think of anything more gay. To this day, this guy is still coping on Twitter. He's calling Actman a grifter. He's been spurging out at anyone who speaks ill of him. Diesel Patches called him out for being a giant pussy, and he then responded by thanking him for the free promotion and calling him a faggot and a cuck, and then he quickly deleted the comment for some reason. Andy needs to keep up the facade that is all together, that he's the badass guy, he's the alpha male. He doesn't even care. He's totally aloof. When of course he does care, he is not aloof. He is extremely ass-mad at how this went for him because he looked dumb. That's why even before the intimidation tactics or the copyright takedowns, he disabled the comments on his own version of the debate. He was upset that people were able to say what they wanted about him. He couldn't handle it, which ironically is his biggest criticism of the far left. And it's a valid criticism of the far left. They unironically support censorship. But here's Andy doing the same thing. This is supposed to be like a free speech guy, a badass who can handle it all. He's uncaring. He doesn't even give a shit. He's a warrior of truth. But when people make fun of him, he has a mental breakdown for everyone to see. Andy is not a unique case. Not every person from his political perspective acts like this, but many of them, like Synthetic Man, do, although even Synthetic Man didn't do it to this great of a degree. He didn't file a copyright claim. Ultimately, people like Andy, while they claim to be fighting for one political side, I mean, I can't see inside of his mind to know what's going on, but stuff like this, at the very least, shows to me that he's a massive hypocrite and completely unprincipled. And, you know, the worst case scenario, he's a complete grifter who doesn't believe anything he says. Either way, I think the title of this video is accurate. Andy Pants Gaming is unironically a sensitive little snowflake, and he's currently melting away. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.